Hello, everybody. It's TT Jones here to talk about delighting ourselves in God, discovering our heart's desires, and developing those giant-slaying mindsets that will enable us to possess the promises, to see all our dreams fulfilled. Have you ever had a dream or a desire? One that you knew was God's will for your life? How have you prevented that desire from dominating your life, from overwhelming your every waking thought? And you know the desires. It could maybe have been a desire to regain your health. You knew that it was God's will for your life to be healthy. But then you're dominated by thoughts of health and wellness and being pain-free. Or maybe it was a desire to come out of poverty, lack, because you knew that it was God's will to provide for you, and more than to provide, to prosper and bless you. Maybe it was a desire for marriage. You know, I went to such a beautiful wedding over the weekend. A friend of mine getting married after waiting a long time. I remember praying with her about 6 years ago, and she was so ready, desperate to be married. And being at her wedding, seeing the fulfillment of this dream, it got me thinking about this subject. How do we prevent our heart's desires from becoming idols? Maybe it's a desire you have for children. You're married, you've been married a long time, and you're waiting to have children. How do you stop that desire from overwhelming you, from making you feel disappointed with God, frustrated with your life? And that is the question that I have for us today. I'm not even talking about ungodly desires, desires to comfort yourself with food or doom scrolling, just desires to fulfill your fleshly nature. I'm talking about good and godly desires, desires that you see and you know without a shadow of a doubt that this is God's will for my life. How do you stop that from taking over the affections of your heart? How do you keep God always enthroned in your heart? If God gives us our heart's desires, then how do we stop these desires from filling up the space that we should give to God? And that is a question for us. I was thinking about one of the role models that we have in the Bible, Father Abraham. He had such a strong desire to have descendants, to have children. And we see the mistakes he made when he was trying to fulfill these desires in his own strength and produced Ishmael. That's evidence of his own desperation and making the desire almost an idol in his affections. But God's patience with Abraham was such that even after Isaac was born, he had done such a work in Abraham that Abraham was willing to bring Isaac to sacrifice him as God instructed, even after he was born. Because by this time, Abraham was dead to those very desires that God had given him. He no longer feared that the desire would not be fulfilled. He was in a place where he could trust God with the very desire that God had given him. And herein is the invitation for us, that we would be able to hold our desires almost at arm's length, that we would die even to the very desires that God gives to us, because we never ever want these desires to take God's place in the affections of our hearts. We never want these desires to cause us to be so desperate that we're trying to fulfill them in our own strength. Personally, I have been on a journey with God, trying to understand my connection with him, but also how to hold the desire without letting it go, but without allowing it to consume me, without allowing it to overwhelm me. And that is a journey for a kingdom believer. That is the journey to possess the promised land. It's one where we develop our mindsets. It's one where we're leaning on him. We know from Psalm 37, verse 4, that when we delight ourselves in the Lord, that he gives us the desires of our hearts. But delighting in him comes first. That's the only way to prevent those very desires that he gives us from taking their place in our hearts. So that's it for this week. I would love to connect with you. I have so many programs and an app that I've developed that will help you discover your own heart's desires. Do follow my link tree below and connect with me, because we truly need to walk in the fullness of God's purpose for us. And the only way we can do this is if we know what God has put in our hearts to follow. So click the link tree below and click to subscribe if you have not done so, or like the video, or connect with me through my email address below. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you next week. God is always, always good. See you then.